Hello, I'm Christopher Bayliss from Fast Growth Online. Thank you for downloading the Fast Growth workbook entitled Plan Your Desired Market Value. Most of us are on this improve, grow and sell your business growth curve. This particular workbook is probably one of the most exciting things for you to do because this really starts planning the next important phase, which is the selling your business. Today, I'm joined by Tim Bentley from Tim Bentley LLP. Tim, thank you for giving up your precious time to come here and to share your experience and expertise in this crucial area of planning your desired market value.
A pleasure.
What we're going to do today is briefly describe how important this topic is and set the context, and then go through a couple of hints to help the viewers use this particular workbook. Before we start, can you briefly describe what Tim Bentley LLP does, please?
Certainly. We specialise in providing strategic advice to own and manage businesses with particular focus on professional firms.
What, like law firms?
Law firms, yeah.
In southern England?
In the south of England, yes.
Yeah. Some of which will be sold?
Some of which will be sold, and certainly in the legal sector at the moment there are a number of mergers and acquisitions taking place as the sector sort of consolidates.
Yes. And prior to setting up Tim Bentley LLP, you were with a much larger firm of accountants.
I was with a firm called BDO, which is a national firm in the UK. In fact, it's an international firm. And I was a managing partner in the Southampton office for a period of 10 years in total.
So in that time period when you were with BDO, I guess you would have done some exciting work with business leaders from small and medium-sized companies in terms of helping them plan their desired market value and realise that value.
Absolutely, and planning and grooming those businesses for sale was very much the exciting part of what I did. And seeing those businesses go from a thinking stage through to actually achieving, fulfilling their ambitions and actually exiting the business for a value that they thought was sensible is very important.
We have other fast growth workbooks in this exciting area, including prepare your business for a high value sale, i.e. groom your business, and secondly, actually sell it. And Tim joins me on those two video interviews on that. But today we're just focusing on plan your desired market value. Before we start, the analogy that I would like to use for any business leader doing this is this thing here, the internationally known game of chess. Could I be black today? You be white? and really, in terms of achieving a high market value, I believe it's a bit like chess. As you know, the three determinants of a high market value are obviously sales, secondly, the percentage operating profit, and then this somewhat mystical thing, profit multiplier. And we're going to look at profit multiplier, particularly today, and how you can calculate it. And it is a competitive situation. If you like, that's the opposition, this is the competition, this is you. And this could be like your sales, this is the things that determine your profit. And the key players, particularly these, are things that impact on your profit multiplier. But it's about doing all three.
It is, and I think one of the beauties of the game of chess is it's around an offensive and attacking game, but it's also a defensive, so protecting what you have, and particularly your most useful and important and key pieces. And the other thing, which I think provides a good analogy here, is that the excellent chess players, of which I'm not one, actually think many moves ahead.
Many moves ahead.
So, and they're planning in their mind different options as to what the implications and what the reaction of the marketplace or the competitors might be to the move that you're considering.
So planning your market value isn't a 2-week job. No. It's about taking a 3 to 5 year view and thinking about how you're going to plan ahead.
Absolutely.
Super, thanks for that. I'm going to move that well out of the way now. Okay, so Tim, you've got a copy of the workbook in front of you. Can you talk us through the title page, please?
Yes, this fast growth workbook is for you to plan your desired market value. And there are 4 items in the contents. Firstly, identify the 3 critical factors which currently depress your profit multiplier. Secondly, calculate your current profit multiplier and predict your future multiplier. Thirdly, calculate the current market value of your company and plan your desired market value. And fourthly, decide your next actions.
And if you're thinking, well, what is a profit multiplier? How do I calculate it? This is the heart of this particular workbook. It's one of the shorter fast growth workbooks, but in my view, one of the most powerful and useful. Okay, make sense? Okay, so on page 1, we look at profit multiplier. Whatever it is what you multiply your operating profit by with your profit multiplier to give you a market value. What do you understand by the term market value in this context?
Market value is in simple terms, I think, the value that your business has. In other words, what you could sell it for. It's around, as with any other major item, whether it be the house you live in, the business is no different. It's only worth what someone else is prepared to pay for it.
Okay, so these workbooks particularly focus on small to medium-sized companies, and they're aimed at sort of conditions which are fairly normal. We've been through a very difficult time in the UK, but now things are returning to normal. And what we're saying here is, and this is my hand here, many businesses could be sold, say, on a multiplier of 10 times operating profit. But a number of factors depress that right down, often to 2 or 3 or 4. So from 4 to 10. Makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the it can be less than 2 actually. You could be down to 1 in some situations, if that.
And throughout the workbook, I make the point that most people concentrate very much on sales, pushing that up. Some concentrate on increasing the percentage operating profit, because the percentage operating profit times the sales equals the actual operating profit on an annual basis. But very few business leaders also think about how they can increase their profit multiplier, because things are depressing it. Can you just read on page 1 some of the things that depress a company's profit multiplier?
Yes, I mean, I think the first one actually is one which I've come across most frequently. It's particularly relevant with owner-managed businesses, where the business may well have been set up by the people that are still there, or the person that's still there. And so those people are very much, they're key, they're an integral part of the business. A lot of the value in the business is actually in the people themselves rather than the business. So that's a factor which can depress the profit multiplier. If I could pick on another one, it would be number 3, which is a business which has a reasonable amount of recurring revenue. In other words, it can see what the base of the sales might be next year and the year after. Another business might be all one-off, and therefore there's little that a prospective purchaser of that business can see in terms of the revenue stream.
All of us can be thinking about things we can do to generate additional recurring revenue. Can make a huge impact on the multiplier. There are some other factors there. Tim, if you could just maybe identify or read a couple of them.
Yes. Let's take number 6. You have weak financial controls. I think any business that has controls over its finances which are not strong is likely to have a multiplier which is very low. Why? Because a prospective purchaser cannot really place any reliance. The business is not robust. It can hemorrhage profit. There can be even some businesses have experienced fraud, haven't they? Because it's so easy, or relatively easy to siphon money out of the business.
Okay.
Another factor
Well, I'm saying that there are, we've listed about 8 for you, and then we said, well, what other critical factors, bear in mind each business is different, depress your multiplier that are unique to your company and business. Please list these below. And then asterisk the top 3 factors out of the 10 which have the biggest impact on depressing your profit multiplier. It's a very salutary lesson, but very important to do that.
I think one of the things that strikes me about these depressing factors, or factors which depress the profit multiplier,
and they're depressing as well.
Yeah, they're depressing as well. Is that actually it does take time to change most of them. I mean, if number one, which we were talking about just now, the directors being essential to your business, it normally takes time to reduce the reliance upon those people, to bring people in, to groom them, and for the effect of their involvement to be minimised, and broadening a customer base. Number 4, which we didn't talk about. But if you've got a few customers that are key in one sector, in a way that the business is quite vulnerable. But if one can broaden the customer base out, that's going to help. But it takes time.
And so what we're saying here, this might be a 3-year journey, which ends in grooming your business, which is really getting it ready for sale and then selling it. But all the hard work and real benefit is done here and the planning.
Exactly.
Okay. If you turn to page 2, this is a super little page which I'm very proud of. It's how to calculate your current unpredicted profit multiplier. There are 5 areas here, some of which we've covered already. So down the left-hand side, Tim, you can see you and your directors, your market, your license and service revenue, your customers, and your new products and services. And for each of those 5, we've given you 2 extremes, 1 to 5. So number 1 for this one is me and my directors, or I and my directors, whichever you prefer, are essential to my business. And then number 5 would be an autonomous management team with succession plan in place.
So this is a scale, in other words, isn't
Yes,
it? For each one, we're saying at one end of the scale, the directors are essential. The other end of the scale, actually, they're not, because you've got an autonomous team that's in place. And what we're saying is that if you've got an autonomous team, then that attracts a score of 5.
Yeah, so correct. So very simply, just go through there. Again, be objective, but also fair on your company. Just circle in those 5 areas where you think you currently are. Okay? And there's a very neat little calculation you can do, is add up those scores, add them up, and let's suppose that the score comes to 10 from the 5 areas. Multiply that score of 10 by 4, which gives you 40, and then divide by 10, which gives you a multiplier of 4. Some companies, of course, would score 5 on all 5 sections. 5 times 5 is 25, times 4 is 100, divided by 10 is 10. So that's a multiplier of 10. Remember what we said earlier on, most businesses are sold between a multiplier of 4 and 10. Very simple, easy to understand concept. Okay? And then most importantly, think about where you want to be in 2 to 3 years' time. As you said, you might need to do something about your directors, you might like to do something about your market, etc. Okay? Do the calculation again and see how you can move possibly from where you are to a... And if you could go from 4 to 6, whatever the operating profit is, it would be huge.
And I think that's a very good point, Christopher, because this is about marginal change. This is if you can go from 2 to 10, fantastic. But actually, 4 to 5 or 4 to 6 is equally significant in many ways, and probably more realistic for many businesses. And I think the other thing I'd say about these scales here is that this is not. It's not scientific. This is a measure of trying to give you an indication as to where you are, isn't it? So in other words, it's not. this workbook is not intended for you to go away and say, right, my current multiplier is 5. It might be 3 or it might be 7, but this is getting you in.
Yeah.
This is getting you into the right sort of zone, and trying to give you some indications as to what factors will affect the multiplier.
Yeah. And this, Tim, is aimed at the majority of mainstream small to medium-sized businesses. We all hear of companies, particularly in online businesses, that are sold for huge amounts of money. And if you work it out, they've been sold on a multiplier of 40, 50, 60. But that is nothing to do with this. This is where there's just some extraordinary strategic advantage.
I think the other thing I would just suggest at this stage is, if you think about it from the prospective purchaser's point of view, then as a purchaser, what sort of aspects of the business would I pay more for rather than less? So would I pay more for a business, taking the first one, would I pay more for a business which is self-sufficient in terms of not reliant on the founder directors or shareholders, or would I pay more for a business which is actually a little bit more independent in the way it works? Would I pay more for, taking number 4, customers? Would I pay more for a business that has a broad base of customers, or would I pay more for a business that's got 2 or 3? You might pay more for a business that's got 2 or 3 if they were very, very solid businesses with a lot of long-term revenue attached to them. But typically you pay more if the customers were higher in number and broader in base. So looking at it from the purchaser's point of view, I think will give you perhaps a better indication here as to what it is we're trying to affect.
Super. You mentioned about significance later on. So I'm going to ask you to turn to page 3, because this is the heart of it. As you know, the focus for Fast Growth Online is triple the value of your business, often within 3 years. And here, pulling this all together now into a calculation, I'm going to use this little flip chart here, Tim. For a typical client of yours, what's a typical annual sales turnover?
Let's use 10 million.
Okay, £10 million, thank you very much. What sort of operating profit, not net profit, but operating profit, are some of those clients of yours working on?
Perhaps 10%?
10%,
something like that.
Nice and simple, 10%. Yeah. So the actual profit, annual profit, is of course 10% of 10 million, which is 1 million. Okay. Professional services companies, typically what sort of profit multiplier are they sold on?
Typically quite a low multiplier, something like 4.
Okay. So their market value, which is item number 5 there, that's the final thing, market value, if they were merging or selling, would be
4 million.
So sales of 10 million, operating profit 10%, 1 million profit, multiplier of 4 because of all those factors we've seen on the previous page, and a market value or sale value of 4 million. 2 to 3 years, hence, especially now the economy is moving forward, if they do some of the things, the other fast growth workbooks, like they get their compelling proposition really tight, they get their niche really clear, they come up with some new products and services that really distinguish them from the rest, they really get their marketing sorted out, have a highly effective sales process, and a fair win and a bit of luck. What do you think they could achieve in 2 to 3 years' time in terms of sales as a percentage increase on 10 million?
I think in 3 years you could certainly get to 15.
15,
yeah.
So a 50% increase.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be unreasonable if you did all those things. Because we're through the survival mode, we're into thriving and growing. So 50% increasing. Again, on the operating profit, if they get their break even really down, they introduce the really right business model for their business, streamline their processes, get some great KPIs, all those sort of things that are going to have a huge impact, and get the pricing tighter. What do you think they could do in terms of operating?
I think they could double it.
Double it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, could you live with half that?
Yeah, I think double it would be stretching probably, but half that.
So 15%.
Yeah.
Again, another 50% increase. 15% of 15 million is 2.25 million. Okay, 15% times that equals that. And at the same time, they do the kind of things we've talked about here, and other things that will jack up the profit multiplier. Okay, and they really do this religiously. Fair wind, a bit of luck. What do you think they could get their profit multiplier up to, irrespective of the fact they're now a bigger company?
Certainly to 6.
Certainly 6, that's a 50% increase. So what I've done here is 50% here, 50% here, 50% here. Almost incremental over 3 years, those things. 6 times 2.25 is 13 million or thereabouts.
Yeah. 13 and a half.
13.5 million. So 4 million, 13 million. You've actually tripled the market value of the company by concentrating on all three things simultaneously. Make sense? But what we're saying is most people focus almost entirely on that. And if you just did that and these stay the same, it would be marginal. But also do that and also do that. Make sense?
Absolutely.
What do you think?
Well, it's certainly around this level here, I think, which is the sort of primary focus of this workbook, isn't it?
It is.
And those factors are whatever you can do up here to get your annual profit up is obviously very significant. But whatever you can increase it by in terms of the multiple here is where it starts to ramp up the value.
Yeah. Super. So that's the third hint. Actually do the calculation. There's plenty of blank space. Download it a second time, and on page 4, the final page, I'm suggesting refine your plan. Do it once, do it a second time, and where it's appropriate, engage your team, because if you are planning to significantly change your market value and particularly your profit multiplier, your team needs to be on board with this.
Absolutely.
And that's it. It's short and sweet, this workbook, but incredibly powerful, and it's really at the heart of Fast Growth Online when we talk about tripling the value. Tim, may I wish you every success with the growth of your business, your bold new venture, and thank you again for sparing your precious time to be with me today.